Let's get to the next discussion now. Less than 48 hours to the general election, we will examine the spread of fake news and its possible impact on the polls. That's the crux of the discussion we're having now. So the federal government has urged Google and Meta, owners of Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram, to checkmate the spread of fake news and disinformation on their platforms ahead of the general election. Now, this is because the spread of misinformation and disinformation reached alarming proportions in the build-up to the presidential poll. Videos and speeches of leading presidential candidates in this election have been doctored and distorted on different social media platforms to mislead the public and bring ridicule to their persons. Some other elements have also attempted to weaponize ethnicity and religion during campaigns to instigate violence and further cause division. With less than 48 hours to the presidential election, political watchers are concerned the spread of fake news might negatively impact the elections. That is the crux of our next discussion. Now, joining us is public affairs analyst Nelson Ekujumi here in the studio. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Great. And we also have on Zoom journalist and executive director of Media Career Development Network, Lekon Otufodurin. Lekon, good morning.
Good morning.
Great.
Good morning.
All right. Now, let's start from the studio. Nelson, you have covered so many elections as an observer and as someone who has, as a member of the CSO, from villages to towns, crisscrossing the entire continent at different times. Now, at times like this, one would say it is very common to see fake news, spreading misinformation here and there, and so on. What are you seeing? What are the elements you're seeing in this build-up to this election this time around?
Well, thank you very much. I've seen several elements, and even it has become so traumatizing that you wake up every day to a new, information that you definitely know it's fake. And for me, I've become worried because some of these fake news have stuck into the memory of our young ones, most especially. You look at the videos. Even there was a minister for information and culture was here some days ago, on the This Morning show. And before you could say, the doctored, video of his presentation is all over the place. Just yesterday, somebody sent me a video from, the person was in Ondo State, and he said, they said they are going to shut down banking, communications there. And I was like, how can you be reasoning like this? But taking a second thought, I had to calm down because I was infuriated that at your age, do you think Nigeria exists only for elections? Even the Bible says, there's this famous quote that law was made for man and not man for law. Does it mean our lives will begin and end on February 25? Absolutely no. So I think we have a lot to do as a nation. There's need for us to up the ante because with regards to combating fake news, we are doing very, very badly. We have not made scapegoats of anybody. We need to educate our people because somebody gets an information on his phone and the next minute he or she is sharing it. And when you ask, where did this thing come from? I don't know. Who originated it? I don't know. Where did it happen? I don't know. What time did it happen? I don't know. Where did it happen? I don't know. And you are like, what's the difference between you and an animal? That you have the intellect that differentiates you from the lower animal and you are not making use of it. So I think as a society, it's one war. If we don't want to imperil our humanity, it's one war we must all guide our loins and frontally challenge.
All right.
Lekon, what can we do? Because the problem with fake news is that even people who are supposed to be educated tend to fall victim of it. I was with a friend of mine in the US the other day. We were discussing the elections and we were talking about a particular presidential candidate. And I said, have you found out how the man governed? I said, he said the state he lives in is paradise. I said, where did you read that one? Why are people not moving the evidence behind? I've not seen a country where people know where paradise is and they don't go there. And so this is an educated person. You can imagine how do we even deal? We're not talking of illiteracy now. We're talking of how do we really enlighten the enlightened in the matter of fake news.
Yeah, well, I think unfortunately the problem is that people are allowing their political preference or choice to influence their perception. So people don't want to listen to the truth, and it's very unfortunate. And in that instance, like Nelson said, the thing is that we need to make scapegoats of people who deliberately spread some of this false information, especially when we can identify the source. People have graduated from what we call false news to deep fakes. Deep fakes being that you can see somebody speaking and it's not the same person that's supposed to be speaking. So the thing to do again is to also raise the level of awareness. This morning I was reading that a collaboration of civil society organization, they are raising a lot of awareness, and they want to have some rapid fact checking so that they can quickly nip in the bud some of this information. I like what has happened in terms of the alarm about the shutdown of the for financial purpose. The corporate affairs group have come out to say it's not true, because that kind of information I also heard about it. People who I don't expect that they should believe, they believe it. So we need that kind of high level intervention where some people come out to say, look, this is not true, and the media can support by giving a lot of visibility to deny of this kind of a thing.
All right, let me stay with you, Lekon, a little bit, because you have done a lot of study and teachings in this very area. Now, social media has come to stay, and social media, we all believe, has created a platform for everyone to be able to speak, giving a voice to everyone. But when we see what happens on social media, the way everybody takes things, or people take things hook, line, and sinker when it comes to information without back checking or verifying and so on, would you say social media is doing us more good than harm, or doing us more harm than good? How do you analyze that?
Well, interestingly, just this morning, I just read a report. There's a Center for Social Media Research Center, and they issued a statement saying that, unfortunately, social media has become antisocial. So it has become something that is harmful. Ordinarily, it should be complementary. Ordinarily, it should expand our avenues to be able to disseminate information. But unfortunately, the misuse of social media has become very worrisome. So you are not sure what to believe, especially when it can easily be manipulated. There are what we call parody accounts. The accounts, if you Google, for example, Buhari online, you find so many accounts. You need to be very smart to know the one that is the right one. So to that extent, I think social media, the misuse of social media, make it susceptible as a platform where it can be used to spread false information. It can be used for people who have political preference to come and just hype their candidate at the expense of the truth. So we see before, if you go on Twitter, for example, and you see the trend, what you call the trend is the thing that is trending. But when you even click this trend, you will not find the information you're expecting to see. People even use it to market. So people even influence the trend to the extent that people can pay influencers and they will be trending, and they're not supposed to be trending. So that is the danger that it has become. And it also makes it necessary for people to understand the use and just not be carried away with everything they read or view there.
Well, the elections are going to take place in a very short period. And what I worry, I want you to speak on it, I want Lekon to speak on it later. What I worry is the fact that it is possible for somebody to spread one incendiary piece of news, and within a short time, it can create problem.
Absolutely.
And what is the guarantee that there is any check to even douse that fire before it catches everything into problem? But it's possible for you to say this person won, and the person didn't win, and everybody believes it, and then suddenly you discover that the truth is elsewhere. But then before the truth comes,
the damage has been
created
done.
some.
Yes, I think that is where the federal government, like from the preview, needs to work seriously with the social media, originators, Twitter, Facebook, Google, because even if you look at what is happening now, polls are just everywhere. How can you conduct a poll of 3,000 respondents in a country of voters of 93.5 million? How representative is such polls? Such polls should also be termed as fake news. So it is our responsibility as a people. Like I always admonish, what differentiates a human being from the animal is the brain. A lot of us, even Sam just talked about, it's not even about the illiterate again, but even the educated ones. You will see a professor. In fact, until recently now, that I think the story about the president being cloned, maybe that one is dying. A professor called me and said, Nelson, I know you are in the public space. Please, is it true that the man in Aso Rock is Jubril from Sudan? And I was like, oh my God. At this level, you can believe the president of a country with the highest population of black people on earth will be cloned. He has ministers. He has a wife. He meets with the service chiefs. He meets with the security agencies. He goes on tours representing Nigeria. So for me, it is not about your level of education. I think it has to do with our mentality as a people. It has to be, we need to have, just like one of the presidential candidates, I watched his interview. I'm talking of another person than Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was talking about the moral, the civic reorientation of our people. Honestly, we are losing it. This is a society in the past that before you come into the society with anything, you dare not, people will ask you questions. If you come into sudden wealth, you know that you have a lot of answers to give, or else that wealth will put you in trouble. But today, our society has become one like the former chief of army staff, late Lieutenant General Saliu Ibrahim, said when he was being pulled out of the military, that the army, under former military dictator Babangida, became an army of anything goes. Because when former head of state Babangida was in the service as the head of state, he destroyed every value in the Nigerian army, such that we had evidences that majors, somebody who is of the rank of a major, no longer had regard, or we don't refuse to take directive from a general. It became that bad. And the earlier we all come to the realization, because we have children, every day I take the pains.
Well, but Nelson, these are allegations that one may not be able to verify.
No, it's verifiable. The chief of army, go and Google it. The past chief of army staff, Lieutenant General, I mentioned his name, that when he was being pulled out of the army in 1994, you recollect, all the service chiefs were retired. He said, our army became an army of anything goes.
Yes.
He made it. It was a public comment. You go and Google it.
Yes.
I'm not the one making it up.
It's true. He made the
It's
statement.
true. We knew people who were of lower ranks who had more powers. Yes. That was true. Look, I want you to speak to this point. I also emphasize what is called the deep fake. You were talking about it recently. Some people don't know it. Imagine a scenario where somebody fakes the INEC chair, fake his voice, and give him the words to say declare a certain person winner of the election. You can imagine that is possible.
Yeah. All right, Lekon, you have unmuted yourself. Can you?
Okay, yeah. So
unmute yourself rather, so we can hear you.
Okay, yes. So I think the situation is very scary. What is possible with technology is something that we really need to educate people about. This morning, I heard INEC talking about where they are going to share the information. people need to know, for example, that the result at the poll at every point is not the final result. They need to understand what it takes to win the presidency, for example, or the House of Rep. So it's not because somebody won in a polling booth or you won in a state that you have to win. So that information needs to be out there. But to the extent that deepfakes is possible, these days, some people have been hired. There are people, it's big, there is job for the boys a lot in terms of technology. So some people are doing these things with the real intention of misleading. So like Sam mentioned earlier, it will be scary if somebody just announce somebody. And that is why the relevant authorities have to stand by. We literally have to keep watch of fake news that we need to dispel immediately so that it doesn't become something that can cause the kind of disaffection that we are envisaging. So deepfakes is to the extent that, like somebody said, we used to tell people that seeing is believing. Seeing is no longer believing these days. It's no longer believing. You need to ask, is it really real? If not, you can easily be misled. You are seeing a picture, the head can be different from the trunk. So you are seeing a video, the person that is speaking, and the thing is that when fake news is coming, there's something in you that is telling you that this may not be true. The problem is that if it fits into what you are expecting, so you want to believe it, and that is a problem. So we need to get over our personal preferences and be sure that what information that is going around. If we are aware that this can be manipulated, so when we are beginning to have that, we should just ask. But like I've said, we need a rapid response, fact-checking, denial where necessary, so that things don't spread too far before it gets out of hand.
All right, Nelson, there's what some people call healthy skepticism when it comes to videos and, in fact, even general as a human being. If somebody makes a statement or somebody makes an allegation or a claim, that's sense of trying to balance between, well, it could be true, but I cannot take it to all, everything hook, line, and sinker. How do we develop that kind of mind in the approach to the videos and all the graphics and pictures that we see on social media?
I think, like I said earlier on, I don't know the type of education we have given to the young ones now, or the education that is prevalent in our society today. I'm a young man by all standards, and I recollect that growing up, one of the things we were taught is that we must verify everything. Even the Bible attests to that. But unfortunately, we live in a society today. Let me tell you, I'm the general secretary of an organization. And as the general secretary, I'm authorized to issue notices for meetings. And I do that through the SMS. And I send SMS messages to members. And the next minute, my phone starts ringing. And I say, yes, the man is asking me, Nelson, I just saw your SMS. What is in it? I'm like, you saw my SMS and you don't bother to open and read. So I should come and explain to you again what you have received. I will now say, please, can you go there and read? If you are not clear, revert. And that will be the end of it. So that tells you clearly, we have gotten to the stage that we need to work, on our mental capacity. For example, as a parent, I sit at home with my children watching TV, and messages are scrolling, and somebody is on the screen, and the name is there. And my son is still asking me, Dad, is it true that is the man? And I'm like, you can see the name there. I'm not the one that wrote it. So you see, we need to develop the mental capacity right from the home, making them realize that, look, don't wait until I tell you. If you have seen the man's name there, go and check yourself. If you hang on that I'll be the one to authenticate it, then I could mislead you. You must be able to make use of your own sense. So that is where I think we need to build our society. That, look, the human brain is capable of doing so many things. Like Lekon rightly said, it is no longer seen as... I saw a post of somebody endorsing a candidate. I was like, wait a minute. This person cannot come out publicly and do this. This person is supposed to be a politician. And less than 24 hours later, the information comes out that it was fake news. So as a people, we ourselves need to recognize what our humanity entails. that our humanity is not just to come here, make merry, and go away. It is to come here and make your footprints in the sand of time.
It looks like we are too wise to know, or we ask a question to become ignorant. We do that.
Okay.
I remember in the case of Ashiwaju's certificate issue,
Yeah.
the University of Chicago, Chicago State University, had to prepare a statement.
Yeah.
Because people were asking, after they had said what they said, people were still going to ask because they wanted to know if Chicago will now say no. What we said before was not true. So you can imagine, sometimes we are too wise to know.
Because of our political
Because we're
preferences.
asking too much to know. Where is curiosity, Lekon? Where is curiosity important, and what is the limit of inquiry?
Curiosity is required when you have genuine reason to doubt, when you don't have vested interest, when you just want the truth. But where you have an agenda or where you want a particular narrative to fit into what you have, then you can take it beyond limit. So like we say, for example, as journalists, we are trained to be skeptical, but we are not trained to be unnecessarily cynical. So skepticism in terms of like, this is information and you are getting clarification. But when you don't even give the person the benefit of that from the beginning, you ask unnecessary questions. And I think that is a problem. And again, when people who are not sort of authorized, have a job schedule to do something, are trying to do it. Typically, if a journalist is trying to verify, you get to the source, and when you see that maybe another platform have done so, you don't need to unnecessarily go after it. But when, in a day when anybody can send email, so we overwhelm authorities who clarify with requests and they get tired. So I think we overstretch our limit of curiosity. And like we have been saying, the problem is our political preference. It's what we desire, what we want. So for example, there's this thing that happened. This one is not even, it's also about how narratives are changed. So there's a pastor in Lagos that came out and said that, look, he didn't endorse anybody, for example. But some people wanted him to endorse, and they were disappointed, and they went after the pastor. So that is how it had become even very frightening for people to come out and say what on their mind. So people are even intimidated because they are not sure what's going to come. And that is not good, because in a free and fair environment, people should be able to speak their mind. But when people are bullied online, I mean, the extent of bullying that is coming out, you need to be strong to ignore the kind of bullying that is coming out. And that is what has happened, is that people of right mind have just refused to talk. It's only people who are really able to battle those people that do it. And like we said, it's also because it has been weaponized to the extent that there are people who are hired. Some of them are even not hired. Some of them turn themselves into willing tools to do some of this damage that we are talking about. So that is why people are overstretching their curiosity.
All right, Nelson, fake news can exist every time and any time. But when we get to a political dispensation, we see the rates seem to spike. What's the correlation or relationship between fake news and political activity?
Oh, you know that political activity is about generating interest, about endearing your candidate or your platform to people. And in order to do that, you create a lot of, information that will, denigrate your opponent. So it is not, alien to only Nigeria. But like we have rightly said, our pain is that the authorities, have adopted a lukewarm attitude. If we have confronted this thing and made scapegoats, because it's a lucrative business, I must tell you. Some people are hired to do this, and they are doing it, and they are going scot-free with it. But if they recognize that, look, if you do this thing, you could be caught, and if you are caught, this is the punishment that awaits you, then somebody will think twice. Then even the citizenry that gets information, there's need for us, to up our ante with regards to education and sensitization. That look, when you get anything, fact check it before you share. Even there are some messages I see that we see that you just know. Before looking at it, you definitely know that, how can you reason this way? So I think it is important for us as a people to recognize that fake news portends grave danger to our humanity. Not only because elections will come and go, but the damage that has been done, I just said it earlier on, the issue about cloning of Mr. President is still out there. And for somebody to believe that a living being can be cloned, a president of a country, it's mind-boggling. That's, oh, come on, how do you reason? So it is now it is a collective responsibility that we have to take up right from the home, and the institutions of state must rise up to the occasion and save us because they have the authority, of the land to do that.
Right.
We have a binary situation. We have crowds. There's one book by Nobel Prize winning author Elias Canetti called Crowds and Power. Talk about how crowds are manipulated and so on and so forth. I even saw that in Shakespeare when in Julius Caesar, this person, Caesar was able to manipulate the crowd and so on and so forth. And we have had different crowds. We have the crowds on the campaigns, and we have the crowds that you cannot touch. That's the one on the online, which they can manipulate. Now, what I'm worried about is how do we know which crowd we're supposed to address, and what language can we use to reach these crowds, especially in moments like this?
Well, at every point in time as a party or a candidate, when you assume the position of a candidate of a party, there are languages you should use. And in addressing the crowds, I don't think there's any reason for you to use different languages. Your languages must be civil, your languages must be focused to the issues. If other information now comes from other sources that is not in tandem with your position, just like some of the presidential campaign council of some of these parties have come out publicly to say that statement was not issued by us. This information is not from us, So I think there is no reason demarcating what messages. The messages should be the same. The messages should be civil. The messages should be, sensitive, to the wishes and aspirations of the people, And in that way, you gather the momentum of the electorate support. But when you use vulgar languages, when you manipulate videos, it means you are taking the people for a ride. And the people themselves, the moment they come of age, that their mental capacity can, be able to disseminate, I think that will send a message to the merchants that, look, the market is no more fertile. We are sending this thing out. The feedback we are getting is in the negative.
All right.
That will cover it a little bit.
All right, Lekan, just in 30 seconds, when it comes to combating fake news, how do we combat fake news? We need to get that tip briefly before we leave.
Well, like we said, it's a very difficult situation, but principally the thing is to educate people about the reality of fake news. Like I said, seeing is no longer believing. And so you need to know that there's an element, there's a chance that what you are watching or what you are seeing is false. And in that instance, ensure that you get information from the right source. Somebody should not send any information to you on WhatsApp and he doesn't have an authority to do so. It has to be signed, although somebody can even impersonate. But the thing is to have your antenna up and know that this can be false and ask. But look for genuine platform. Look for authorized platform where that information. So if you get an information about INEC, go to INEC website, the verified INEC website, and cross-check. And these days, for journalists, I want to say that because sometimes some media has also fall prey. The thing that journalism is not sitting before the internet and just checking. We need to remember that the old journalism practice is still there. Pick up your phone, call, go to some of these places. There's fire 1 kilometers away from you. Somebody needs to drive there. So we need to be sure that some people are around trying to confuse us, and we should not fall for it, because those people who are citizen journalists or whatever they call themselves, some of them are just mere members of the mob, and we can't afford to fall prey and because trust is very important for us. We have an address. Most of them don't have an address.
It's okay.
Reality is not reality is not always realistic.
Exactly. All right, Leko Otufodure, thank you so much for your time on the program this morning, as well as Nelson Ekujimi. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.